Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. And today's comic is All New Teen Confessions, issue number 89 from 1975. As far as my overall impressions of this is pretty interesting. We got three stories here, none of them about teens. The first two stories are fine. However, there's an incredibly inappropriate story in the third one. It is definitely not something that's appropriate for teens. However, it was clear from reading it that the person who wrote that story, they lived that story. And it is amazing. It's just so inappropriate. So anyway, I'll get into it. I'll look at the cover here. It's a painted cover. I'll talk about Charleston and their business model in terms of how they dealt with their artwork. But we can see here it's a painted cover. So this is not simply pencils and ink. Kind of a Sons of Anarchy theme to it. We see an attractive blonde there. We see a younger man holding her, and kind of an older man kind of looking, I guess, menacingly at the two, indicating there might be some trouble here. Like I said, the person who wrote that last story, they lived that story. They lived that story, and oh boy. Anyway, we open up the comic. The first story is Let Them All Talk. This is a kind of like a love triangle here. We have our heroine, Donna. We have Richie, her current boyfriend, and we have an older, distinguished man, Dr. Jason something. He's kind of the older guy. He kind of has like these white wings. I guess a little bit like Paulie from The Sopranos, a little like Reed Richards. I guess it was called Distinguished back then. In terms of the art, the art's pretty good. This art actually was quite influential because I have to believe that like Roy Lichtenstein and Charles Burns and artists like that must have drawn heavily on art this style. The artists are definitely proud of their works. They put their name on it, Capello. I think that is. So anyway, we'll go on to the story. We see the main couple, Donna and Richie. They're making out. They're clearly in a relationship. Everything's cool here. There's kind of no complaints from Donna here. However, Donna has a job where she has to interact with an older man at a real estate agency. And because Donna's very attractive, and it turns out that the older man, I think his wife died or something. So anyway, he's available. He's noticing Donna, very attractive woman. Anyway, we see Donna's kind of moving up the firm's ladder as Jason's kind of including her in more and more important deals. Donna was originally the secretary. And, I guess as a secretary, she would kind of need to be privy to this. And she's sort of learning, and she's making these connections. And more importantly, he's making her feel good about herself. So anyway, we see Jason. Richie's nowhere to be found. They're driving around. They're having these very intimate talks. We see the doctor. He's really putting on a charm offense here, taking her dancing, whining and dining her, letting her know how important she is to him. And yeah, kind of the things that kind of sugar daddies have to do. Oh yeah. She's living the life of Riley here. So they're not going to McDonald's or anything. We see an ad for dog tags. Anyway, she's still with the doctor, and they're making out, and he's taking her to these trips. So people around the office are claiming that her real position is the other woman. We see Richie calling. Richie was nowhere to be seen until now. And he's on the phone looking for Donna. Donna's not available. And he says, "No, I'm not. I'm not the boyfriend anymore." So, I mean, this is like a really passive way to break up. I mean, Richie's not even a good simp. I mean, at least, confront Donna in some way about this. Go to the office and embarrass yourself. No, Richie's very passive. Then we see a really nice piece of artwork here of Donna just laying down in the dark, just kind of sobbing about the turn of events that has happened. I mean, she's taken with Dr. Jason, but she still has feelings for Richie. Donna's at home, doesn't know what to do. I think she's kind of broke it off formally with Dr. Jason, saying we can't go on like this. I don't. You're not the guy for me. So anyway, then Richie comes and sees Donna. Donna's surprised by this. Richie says that he got a call from Dr. Jason about the whole thing. I'm not sure I would want that call. Because I can imagine, like Dr. Jason said, yeah, all those times I had sex with Donna and she screamed out my name. She was really thinking of you, bro. All 15 times. Do you want me to tell you about all of them? So, I would not welcome that call. However, the two decide to become a couple. Now, as far as my prognosis of this couple, this is not going to last. Richie is too passive, and Donna was pretty happy with the sugar baby life. So, I don't see this couple lasting. So we go on to the second story. It's called Please Don't Leave Me. This was actually a pretty good story overall. I'll say one thing. The adults were acting for the most part pretty reasonably. So anyway, we got our adults. The couple is Michael and Claudia. And they're together here, clearly in a romantic situation. Claudia kind of looks a little like Dana Delaney. The one thing that Claudia is noticing is that whenever she's with Michael, there's always other women around. And we see Claudia and Michael kissing. Another woman is spying in. The other women are talking to Claudia, so she's hearing rumors, but she doesn't have any actual proof. Because whenever she's with Michael, the interactions seem fine between them and the and other women. So I guess that Michael's really good at somewhat hiding it from her. Again, we see another attractive woman near Michael, and they're going to dinner, and they're meeting up with a guy named Jim. And Jim is friends with Claudia. He has his suspicions about Michael, and he's sharing this with Claudia. So Jim and Claudia are like best friends right now. And they're both suspicious of Michael's behavior. Then we see they're at another party. They don't work. They make a lot of money, though, because they're always well dressed. Anyway, this is like a hip party. Claudia's a little down because she's really unsure about Michael. We see Jim's around, kind of just, hey, lean on me, babe, lean on me. So anyway, they're still kind of looking around for Michael. Claudia finds Michael, but he's in the embrace of another woman. However, before she can say something, Jim breaks in. And he goes, aha, I caught you, motherfucker. So, Michael's hey, don't jump to conclusions, just because I had my tongue down her throat doesn't mean anything. So anyway, then Claudia comes in, she's a witness to it. So she sort of wants to separate from Michael right now. She's really pissed off, and she's really kind of leaning on Jim. Jim's taking her home, she's upset, she's saying, hey, I tried to tough it out here. I tried to be, understanding and overlook a lot of things. Jim is just sort of, you still got to test this guy. We see an ad here, March free gifts for the whole family. I bet you the commercial artists who did this got paid more than the entire art team for this comic book. And I'll talk about Charleston and their very low pay rates a little later. So anyway, Claudia doesn't want anything to do with Michael, and for some reason they decide to go to the beach. So Jim and Claudia are at the beach. However, they both see Michael, and Michael's with another woman there. So that was like, Claudia, that's all Claudia needed to say, aha, this is over with. So anyway, she's pissed off. So anyway, she takes the wedding ring, throws it back at him, doesn't want this. She realizes there's no real, resale value to it. Also, like, if you're going to get married, also, you should never buy, like, a wedding ring from a jeweler. What you should do is just kind of go to a pawn shop, buy a nice old ring, and just say, hey, this is a family heirloom of mine. This belongs to my mom, and I want you to have it. It may not have much resale value, but it has so much sentimental value. Blah, blah, blah. This way you're not like spending thousands of dollars for a shiny rock. It's advice from me, an unmarried man. Michael's like, but, I still want to be married with you, even though I kind of want to fuck other women. And Claudia's like, no, it doesn't work that way. She wants nothing to do with Michael. However, Claudia's there, and Jim's there, and these two start a relationship. And, you know what? I actually think Jim and Claudia will make it. The reason is that both of them behave pretty reasonably throughout this comic. Like, Jim never overstepped his bounds. He was completely, the gentleman and what he needed to be to help Claudia. And the fact that he was sort of like right there for the rebound, that was just, hey, he was happy about it, but he wasn't planning that. He was a good guy. He had good motives. Claudia was the same way. Claudia really just needed information. And the more information she got, the better her choices got. And she kind of cut her losses pretty quick. So I would say overall these two, they're gonna be okay. Before we go to the third story and the inappropriate one, we're going to take a look at Buck's Bag. It looks like at this time Charleston had employed kind of a teens specialist who can handle problems that teens might have, sort of like an advice column. And I don't know whether the comic book companies had to do this, or they chose to do this as a way of showing, hey, that we're being responsible and respectful of our young audience. Because that was always a big problem with comics, particularly in the 50s when they were almost banned out of existence. One girl, Help, she's talking about how she's dating a guy, Jeff, and he's 16. And basically, she feels that Jeff is kind of pushing her away. Like, Jeff isn't, like, introducing her to his family. He's not really acknowledging her in public and stuff like that. So she clearly has something with Jeff, but she feels that maybe Jeff is sort of just like letting the string run out. So anyway, the grandmother really doesn't like this girl. Says, hey, leave my grandson alone, bitch. And however, she's kind of, going through a lot of angst. And we see that Buck kind of feels like, hey, this is for the best. He's sending you signals, and you may not want to believe that you're going to develop something from this. I would try to maybe talk it out, but, she's only 16. So, yeah, she's probably making more of this than he is. Yeah, he should leave her. No, she should leave him, because this is dying on a vine. Okay, the next letter is from Wandering. She's 14, and she's talking about how other of her girlfriends who are also 14 went to the pool, and there were some older boys there, and the boys started talking to them, and they were using very dirty language and kind of being very inappropriate. But the girls did not like this, and they let it be known. However, I think a relative of theirs got angry at them, saying they shouldn't be taking it so seriously. And it's just wondering if, hey, I feel bad about this, is this right? Buck is saying, no, he's saying you girls were right. You were the ones who did the right thing, saying that you acted like ladies, and you don't want to be, messing around with these older 18, 19-year-old guys, who are making you feel uncomfortable. Which, yeah, it's good advice. I mean, if you're 18, 19 years old, stay away from 14-year-olds. Anyway, here's an address where you can contact Charleston. Okay, now we're going to go into our inappropriate story. It's called Running Wild. This was definitely a work of passion. The art is really good here. It's very much commercial artwork, not someone who's a regular comic book artist. So this is an artist that came from the commercial art world. But this was still really well drawn, I have to say. So anyway, going to Charleston. Charleston was sort of like a lower tier comic book publisher in the 50s, 60s, 70s. They were based out of Connecticut. They did a lot of genre comics, although sometimes they would get high profile Hollywood properties that you wouldn't think, oh, they'd be publishing under Charleston. Anyway, because of Charleston's business model, they offered very low page rates to the artists who came up with these stories. And the reason for this is that Charleston was able to do this because in the commercial art world, which paid a lot more than comic books, work could sometimes be sporadic for those artists. So in between jobs, they may get into a situation where they just simply need to pay the bills. So they would work with Charleston Comics. They paid very little, but they gave the artist a lot of freedom. So if an artist kind of like didn't want to put in a great effort, they turn in just a readable story, and they would be fine. You have other commercial artists who really put a tremendous amount of work into these stories, and this one is one of them. Running Wild. So enough about Charleston's business practices. I should say this is kind of like, Love, Sons of Anarchy style. You got Pike, you got Rosalie, you got Tim, you got Charles Manson, and you got Rosalie's mom. We see two of our main characters. This is Rosalie, and this is Pike. You can see they're out for action. They're on this motorcycle bike. They don't have helmets on. The blonde hair is flying. And these people are letting it be known. He's like, hey, we exist. And they're just letting everyone know how wild and crazy they are. So anyway, we see that Pike and Rosalie are making out. Then suddenly, basically, Charles Manson shows up. This character is named Chopper, but this is Charles Manson. So anyway, Charles Manson here, he's basically saying that, Pike should let her go because, now he wants to test the new talent out there. See a couple of ads. One ad for Charleston, how to break into comics. I guess it's probably how to break into comics. Anyway, go back to the story. So, Pike stops kissing Rosalie. So he's debating with Charles Manson here on whether he should give Rosalie to Charles. So anyway, at first, Pike is like, no man, this is my girl. And then, out of nowhere, he pushes Rosalie into Charles Manson. And he's like, hey, bros before hoes. And we see Charles Manson has Rosalie in kind of an embrace here. Rosalie's definitely not happy about this. Pike's letting it be known he's enjoying the situation. However, Rosalie's still putting up a struggle, doesn't want to kind of go along with this. And both Charles Manson and Pike, they school Rosalie about the culture they're in. That, she's more or less property. And if Pike chooses to share her with his friends, yeah, he can do that. He can order you to do that. So it's kind of like, same way Pike's letting it be known that, hey, this is how the world works, our world. And then we see Rosalie is kissing Charles Manson here. Pike is enjoying this. Pike is like, hey man, was it as good for you as it was for me? It's kind of weird being, cuckolded by Charles Manson. So anyway, we see that Pike's kind of laying down the law, because Rosalie's a little resistant to it. She clearly has feelings for Pike. She definitely likes aspects of the biker culture, but clearly some of it does bother her. They're talking it out. Rosalie and Pike ride off. I should say Pike's riding Rosalie. And we see Rosalie's at home. So Pike, dropped her off at home. And we see the, quote, good guy. Tim is sort of played up to be the nice guy. He's not really a nice guy. So there's a number of things that are not so nice about our nice guy Tim. Rosalie saying, stop bugging me. I'm not your girl. I'm Pike's girl. Not your property. I'm Pike's property. So anyway, Tim's kind of being nosy. So he has no disregard for Rosalie's agency or wishes. Tim says, if you go out with him, you're community property. Again, I'm not sure whether anything under the banner of teen confessions should have such concepts, but nevertheless, I do have to say, these are some really nicely drawn art here. This person lived this life, and this person cared about it to really put this tremendous effort into the art. So anyway, we see Rosalie and Tim. Tim's being friend zoned like crazy. Rosalie does air her complaints about Tim, saying that Tim kind of treats her like a child, is kind of patronizing. And, Tim is kind of taking this in, but he's not really taking it in. Rosalie's talking to her mom. Her mom is like, hey, Pike's a bad guy. Tim is the guy I want you with. And Rosalie's like, oh, Mom, I know that's not what everyone wants for me. And that she views Tim as kind of a boy. She doesn't really view him as a man. So she doesn't really have much respect for him. Anyway, see Rosalie, she's in front of her home. And then Pike drives. So anyway, we see that Rosalie views Pike as kind of an escape. So she kind of feels maybe her parents are overbearing to her, telling her that she doesn't know what she really likes. So anyway, Pike is taking Rosalie to kind of a coffee shop called the Sweet Shop. And here's Tim again, kind of again stalkery. And here we see, quote, nice guy Tim. And he's kind of stalking Rosalie. Again, he's not a nice guy. Anyway, Pike is noticing that this guy, Tim, is always around. He wants to belt him, but kind of Rosalie's saying, hey, he's just a little boy. Just ignore him. Pike's, kind of talking to Rosalie, saying, you don't need that kind of life. You need a man. a man like me. And again, they're talking about the biker code here. This is kind of a funny balloon. Have a Coke, and then we're heading out to Crystal Lake. However, they are concerned about the police, but Charles Manson saying, hey, don't worry about it. We're always one step ahead of them. Kind of, Charles Manson's really kind of making Rosalie feel uncomfortable, but Pike is allowing this to happen. And, and we see Rosalie looking like she just came off a bad LSD trip. We see nice guy Tim basically invading the date. As bad as Pike is, we should allow Rosalie some agency. This is not nice guy behavior. Anyway, we see that Charles Manson and Pike, they don't like Tim. They're thinking maybe they should jump him now, but I think Pike wants to hold off because he doesn't want to draw police attention. Rosalie still just like, let him go. He's a little boy. We don't need to talk to him. And so the motorcycle guys kind of ignore Tim. So Rosalie goes off with Pike, Charles Manson, and his date. So they're in this kind of scenic forestry scene here. Again, nice artwork here. See Pike is holding on to Rosalie. We see Charles Manson is holding on to a blonde. And then Pike is kind of pushing Rosalie in the direction that she doesn't want to go. However, Rosalie gives in. She's passionately kissing Pike. Charles Manson's looking on. However, Rosalie has an epiphany. She says, "Oh my God, these guys are animals. What the hell am I doing here? My dad was right about them. So was Tim." She's having just a world of regret right now. However, independent of that, there comes a car driving in, and we see that it's not so nice guy Tim. He once again invades or intrudes on Rosalie's date. However, Pike is stopping Rosalie from going off. We got Tim here. He's letting it be known he's not afraid of these two, because it's Tim versus Pike and Charles Manson. Tim's like, I can handle you two. So Pike lets it be known that this guy, he may have came in a car, but he'll be leaving in an ambulance. Rosalie runs toward Tim's car. What I find interesting here is that she has intimate knowledge of Tim's car, saying, Tim's car usually starts right away. Come on, start. Anyway, the fact that she knows so much more about Tim's car than Tim should give you an idea of how little she thinks about Tim. What are your thoughts about Tim? Well, his car is really awesome. So anyway, she gets the car going, and she does a Mad Max right toward the three guys. Oh yeah, during this time, Pike was beating up on Tim as Charles Manson was holding him down. So anyway, Rosalie, she rams into the bikes. So she doesn't hit the guys, but she hits their bikes. We see Tim punching Pike here. We don't see Charles Manson, so I'm assuming he's out for the count. I guess there was some pacing problems here because they kind of just say, well, Tim just jumped in the car and we drove off. So they kind of had to abbreviate this ending a little. Anyway, it turns out the guys, Pike and Charles, they don't want Rosalie anymore. Charles Manson says, she wrecked my sickle, like the hammer in the sickle. Anyway, and then we see at the last panel, It looks like Tim and Rosalie are are getting intimate, and it looks like they're going to be a couple. My prognosis or my diagnosis for this couple is dim. It is bad. Tim is not a nice guy. He was a stalker. He was intrusive. He ignored Rosalie's agency. He talked at one time. Well, I'm ending this date because I've seen enough. So he's a very controlling guy. Rosalie knows that Tim is kind of boring, so she's heading in her prime years to be with the guy she knows or doesn't believe will provide her with any fun. So, and the thing is, she kind of likes some of those aspects of the biker culture. She may not like being quote community property of the club, but nevertheless there were aspects of the biker culture she liked. A lot of the things that she was looking to get from Pike, she could probably maybe find in someone who's not named Tim. Yeah, those feelings. Yeah, this is not a good coupling, but nevertheless, this is the coupling we're given at the end of this story. Should kind of, I guess, look at some of the ads. And again, about this story, it's definitely the most complex love story I've ever read in a comic book. Anyway, one ad that kind of stood out was for a book about the famous quote midget wedding. This is of General Tom Thumb, and they were a part of the circus, and they had apparently were quite famous in their lifetime. It's really odd, kind of the write up for this, because it also focuses on quote other freaks, and that's the word they use, although they put in quotes. So they're saying, hey, these people aren't freaks. They just lived unusual lives. Like the Elephant Man. He just kind of looked unusual. Anyway, the mule faced woman. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get that freak title out when you have names like this. Nevertheless, again, the write up's very strange because it's basically like saying we treat these midgets with dignity. We treat these freaks with dignity. Okay, whatever. So anyway, I think that's about it. And that is my review of All New Teen Confessions, number 89.